presence tonight. We just want to say thank you for the many blessings you've given us. We know that you cherish your name with you throughout that. Look for those who you comfort them in these times that expect us. And Lord, again, just wrapping arms around those families and let them know that they can look to you for strength and comfort. Ask you blessings for students, Lord, and fill them with spiritual strength and wisdom. That they are hearts to always mindful of you in our eyes and in our take of our words. Again, with you tonight, with us in the city, we ask. Mr. Higginbotham, call roll, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Boozer.
Here.
President Logan.
Here.
Councilman Sullivan.
Here.
Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Hogg.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Item 5 is approval of the agenda. In our pre-meeting, we went over the agenda. No real changes to the agenda. So at this time, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Sullivan. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilman Boozer.
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Carries, Mr. President.
Item 6, visitors to address our council. No stranger to the city, of course, Mr. Bobby Herndon. Thank you, Bobby. Good to see you again.
Mr. President, Mayor, Council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. Bobby Herndon, 5925 4th Avenue, Northport, Alabama. I want to say that I appreciate your willingness to serve. I know it's tough, but I appreciate your service. I got a few things I want to discuss, and the first one is when I came on as mayor in 2008, the county school board, in meetings with them, had promised us a middle school, a Northport middle school up by County High, grades 6, 7, and 8. All right. About 3 years later, or sometime later, of course, Northport, the council did a study to start our own school system. And the school board came back, the county, they said, hey, wait, we're about to build that new middle school, about to build it the 6th, 7th, and 8th by County High. A couple of years later, I was approached by Dr. Swinford, who was the county school superintendent at the time. Please come with us before the county commission. We need to extend the 1-cent sales tax. We need to get that Northport Middle School built, grades 6, 7, and 8 up by County High. Started in '08. This is 2017. And I know that you guys have heard and had discussions, and I've had discussions and heard about what the plans are for the new school up by County High and revamping of other schools. And I guess what I want to say under this item is I'm not asking you to vote or decide on a new school system. I'm not doing that. I just challenge you to make the school board stand up to their word as far as 6th, 7th, and 8th. As you all know, as go your schools, so grows your city. We've got opportunities all over the city, especially in the northern part of the city, where we've got people moving in, but they want their children to be in neighborhood schools. Schools are a drawing point. But I want to challenge you to hold the county school board's feet to the fire. You know, it's a 7-member board, and they're doing their job, and I appreciate the job that they do. But there's one of them that lives in Northport, in the city limits of Northport. We make up over 1/3 of the students and of the school of the county school district. You know, we either need a revamping of the districting where we've got more Northport people on that school board, because, well, look at County High. I know everybody knows that County High was built, donations from Rodney's granddaddy, Mr. Foss's. The citizens of Northport pretty much built county high. Save the county school board lots of money. But I just challenge you to look out after the growth of Northport, Alabama. Look out after the citizens. Look out after the educational needs of our students. Look out after recruitment of new families moving in. New families moving in are going to bring in new retail, Jeff. The more families moving in, going to be bringing in more retail. All right, so if you will, I know y'all going to be discussions with the county school board. Hold their feet to the fire, because after 8 years, their word is no good. Their word is no good. And so, you know, look out after the citizens of Northport. That's my first thing I want to talk about. Second thing is, I read in the paper last week about maybe selling City Hall. Well, of course, I got a lot of calls about that, saying, man, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. But I'm going to tell you, if it's in the best interest of the city of Northport, I'm for it. If it's in the best interest. But in order to prove to everybody it's in the best interest, what I'd like to see before any vote is taken, I know we've got this property here. I know we owe money on it. I know, and I think the paper said we have to build a new fire station out west of town. We have to build a new city hall somewhere on some property. I want everybody, citizens of Northport, to be assured that it's money well spent, and it's not going to come back and bite us in the rear end cost-wise. You know, just out on paper, if you can show us, say, hey, we're going to save this much money, we're going to make this much money, everything's going to be great. But don't just bring it up and vote on it. If you will, write it out, be specific, do some accounting, and show everybody exactly how the city of Northport is going to benefit from that. Also, I heard that you're going, if we move the Northport City Hall, we'll probably move it on the edge of town down by the river. And that makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Why would you want to have your city hall? You want to have your city hall in the heart of the growth of the city. So if you will, take that in mind too. But you know, why are people up around Robert's area, up that way, Jeff's area? They're going to drive all the way down if they want to conduct business at City Hall down to the right beside Tuscaloosa. And that, to me, I said that makes no sense. So if you're going to move City Hall, keep it in the same general location or even further north, because that's where the heart of Northport is. And the last thing I want to talk about, I know it came out in the paper about the audit, and it was disheartening. The stuff that was used, the words that were used, the words on the audit, the facts that were presented. And of course, I got a lot of calls about it, about things that happened back in April 2016. And I want y'all to know that this is not sour grapes. People say, well, he's up here because he lost the election. No, I'm honest with you. I thank God every day that those 700 people didn't get back out to vote in the runoff. But I should have spoke up in April of 2016 more than I did. And the stuff on the audit report about the thing with Scott Collins was pretty much spot on. And the other things that were there, I have no knowledge of because I'm not here every day like you guys are. But in order to satisfy my curiosity and the curiosity of other hundreds of folks that have called me, I've asked the State Attorney General to investigate that and put everybody's mind at ease. If there was no wrongdoing, that's awesome. But if there was some wrongdoing, we need to address that and take care of it. But that's the three things I wanted to say. And like I said, I appreciate your service.
I'm sorry. Hey, Bobby, thank you so much. As a citizen, we really appreciate it. I did want to rebut a couple things, but I do know Councilman Sullivan had a couple issues or items that he wanted to at least address. But before he does that, I think you mentioned school board. Mayor and council is aware of it. They're engaging the school board now. So holding them accountable and challenging them is exactly what we're trying to do what's best for Northport. So that's one. The selling of City Hall, I think we did it to get a response too. It's a bold move. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, well, like I said, I'm all for it. If it makes sense, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And I think if you go back in the many studies, you and I have served together, if you go back the many studies and the SHREP meetings that citizens have had, from 2004 up to 2015, I think one study even said that downtown was needing some new energy. So if you go back in the planning office and dust off a lot of those plans that the city paid money for, a lot of your plans, the majority of them says that City Hall needed to be in that area. And a lot of plans have shown that. But you make a, you know, you as a citizen, the growth is going that way.
Right.
So I wanted to say that, but I think Councilman Sullivan had a couple things to at least.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor Herndon, appreciate it. You don't have to stand up here the whole time if you don't want to.
Hey, no problem.
This is something I was gonna do at the end of the meeting, but I'll go ahead and just get into it now. First of all, I'm sure everybody has seen this right here, and I wanna start off by saying, Mr. Deathridge right here is a dang good writer, and we're very blessed to have him writing for this city. I think he's been very fair on a lot of fronts. However, he is not in charge of headlines, and this headline pisses me off. All right, so y'all bear with me as I get through this. It says right here, a county farm report says officials possibly broke state law, and there's my photo. That did not happen, and I speak for every single person sitting up here. That did not happen. We will get into that in a minute. I think Mr. Davis might want to speak to that as well. So basically, you know, like I said, the article, if you read it, the article is spot on. It states exactly what went on. And for myself to have my photo on the front page, it's just certainly not called for. While it doesn't bother me personally, it does affect my family and my wife, and I really don't appreciate that, being on there and being reported this way, because some people do just like I did. They read this headline and that's it. They don't buy the paper, they stop. If you read it, it's good. I'll give you all the credit in the world. You've always done a good job. I've told you that many times. This is the result of me simply answering the phone. When we have some tough situations going on, I'm the easiest person to find. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
That's accurate. All right. I love this city. I'm not going to run from any issue no matter what. We faced it head on. Is it perfect and pretty? No. We're going to get into the audit in just a second. I'm going to go through every single detail on what we've done. So bear with me, please. We'll save this for a minute. Ron, if you want to comment, you can come in just a second.
Councilman, if y'all got any more questions for me, I appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Bobby.
Like I said, I was going to do this at the end, so we're going to do it now. I do want to go through some of the budget process on how we get here. It's been told to me that we haven't been open or upfront. That's completely wrong. I cannot be any more open. Now, I can't help people don't show up when the meetings are announced. That's it. He's come to meetings where it's only been a handful of us. So I do want to take just a moment to go backwards a little bit and let you know how we got here. First off, when we voted to put the committees back in play, I did not ask to be on the Finance Committee, did not technically want to be on that committee. My colleagues wanted to put their trust in me to do that. I gladly accepted, and I'm very honored that you guys allowed me to do that. It's been a lot of work. I've lost a lot of sleep. I actually have gray hair. Can't get rid of that. But for what it's worth, it's been a very enjoyable process. So back when we started this back in 2017, the first thing we did as a Finance Committee was sit down and address the weaknesses of the audit. I'm going to read you this list from January of this year. This audit right here. Guess what? The day we got it last week, it's 9 months old. Everything we've done since I've got on the Finance Committee has been worked on, and we're fixing to get into every single one of them. It's just not fair to these guys to read something like this and think we're falling behind when we're not. So anyway, the item we first found when we got into the audit was reporting to council, civic center rental policies and fees, holding money in drawers and batching policy, the finance director not having access to anything and everything involving cash coming in or out, checking the insurance on all our vehicles and equipment and making sure they're up to date, reserve fund percent increases, they're set to increase year by year. Health insurance, which you'll get into that tonight, and additional staff for finance. Now, the problem we ran into with the budget, first of all, the people involved in the budget were myself, Jay, April, Joseph, Charles, and Ron. All right, keep in mind what I just said. I haven't dove this deep into the finances ever before. April has been here not even a year. Charles hadn't worked on a budget in 10 years. Joseph's probably never worked on a budget this in-depth. We had a huge task in front of us. We were all up to the challenge. So what we did, we really had some issues with the line items in the budget and trying to match them up to what was really spent at that time. So to her credit, April Hoffman sitting right there, she went back 3 years and we tracked everything we could and matched it to what was in the current budget. All right, that took a lot of time and a lot of hours. She gets every bit of that credit because she works very hard. Once we were able to do that, we felt like we had a pretty good base to get started on the budget as a whole. So we started with those numbers. We thought they were all very accurate. We met with every department head. Every department head was very, very hands-on in this budget. Enjoyed working with all of them. Again, we finally got to a point in the budget. It was dragging on months and months. April and I, we finally made a decision. We've got to get comfortable with this and move forward. We could play with these numbers all day long. And you really could. And it's all good. It's a lot of fun playing back and forth, seeing what you can do here and, cut here and all that. So anyway, we did. We moved forward with that budget and we voted on it in here and it passed 5-0. We knew very quickly after that we were going to have to do an amended budget. We knew at the time we could make this better once a few months rolled by, and we can really see where every department is. So that's exactly what we did. We started going back department and line by line, looking at what was actually spent, what might needed to be spent. A good example of this are the tractors that Public Works just got. That was not in your original budget. That was in your amended budget. That's why. We were able to make some corrections and get it more fine-tuned. Solely benefited your department on that, and glad we were able to do that, as well as other departments as well. So anyway, we went through the amended budget, and I'm not poking fun at any of you guys up here, but we went through that amended budget for hours, and only one council member showed up. Hours. I can't help that, guys, okay? I mean, I'm not going to go through this again and again and again. I know everybody's busy and has a lot going on. I completely understand that and have no issue with that. But we've tried to be above board on everything we've done. And by the way, I wrote this on the way to Orange Beach from Northport on Friday, and I can tell you every speed bump and pothole between Northport and Orange Beach. As you can see it in my handwriting, so careful on that. So anyway, that's kind of where we lead up to. The amended budget's passed. It passed again 5-0. We made a lot of improvements. I feel, and I think she'll agree this too, as well as Administrator Higginbotham, that we are now operating on one of the most accurate budgets that we've ever had. It's very, very difficult to get all that together. It took a lot of time from a lot of people. Right now, today, as you have heard, or I don't know if it was in the article or not, but we were borrowing money from water and sewer just to make payroll. We don't have a cash problem. We have a cash flow problem. If we stick to the budget we're on right now this year, that will not happen. That's the first time that I can tell you. I don't know. I haven't really been involved until now, so not going to go back in the past. All I'm focusing on is 2017, which this group was a part of. So just so you know, we've worked really hard to make those corrections. As far as the budget goes, we're still on track. We might possibly do another amended budget coming up. One thing we're working on for 2018 is changing our calendar year back to the fiscal year, October 1, October 1. Every other government around here does that. I don't know why it changed. It doesn't matter. We feel like we can get more bang for your buck by changing the year back to October 1, October 1. That's something that staff is working on right now. We're going to have it on the agenda tonight, and we just wanted to make sure we're going to be able to tackle that. So your next budget may not be but 9 months. So hopefully we're working on that as well, and that's certainly going to help the way things flow throughout the city. Why it was changed, I don't know. At this point, really, it's irrelevant. Back to me, just taking a beating in the paper and being the fall guy every time on this, I'm fine with that. But it hurts the city, and that's what really bothers me. And I'm not going to go into detail this because I don't want to get long-winded. But again, the Mercedes deal, the next day, the headline was horrible. The article was great. Again, I give you credit. You're a wonderful writer, and I certainly want to make sure you get credit for that. So here it is. This is what they presented. This was the incentive agreement that we had to look at. When it was first brought to my attention, it was pretty much going, all right, Finance Committee, we have no paperwork, but you need to go to council and ask for $150,000 for 10 years. I cannot do that. These members would have been crazy to vote on something like that. I had to have something to go to them with to say, this is why we got to do this. It's all laid out in here. When we met with the IDA, it was a good meeting. Were there tough questions? Yeah, I'm sure there were. But at the end of the day, we all knew that we had to uphold this agreement. It was back in 2009. I wasn't even here. didn't know about it. But again, we tried to do what's right and ask questions. That's all it was. Simply asking questions, trying to get the right answer. We did that. So let's move on to this year's audit. I want to address all 6 of these issues. We'll start with Mr. Collins. That issue is 16 months old. I'm sorry. You know, it is dead and gone. It's been brought up over and over and over. This is a new council, and we have a new direction. We're ready to move this city forward. I'm tired of dragging this back up over and over again. It was time for a change. That's what happened. We have a new council that's very aggressive on retail, which I'm sure you'll get into that here in a little bit later tonight. So I'm proud of these guys for that. The Viper line issue, these are the 2 issues that were all brought up in the paper that seem to be hot topics. We did, this council right here, I know it's got my picture in here. Not a bad picture either. But this council was aware of every single thing that went on. We met in executive session behind here and it was brought to our attention, we had a security issue that needed to be fixed immediately. There was a lot of data that was vulnerable. Our information was included. Anybody with a water bill, anybody that does business where information is collected, we had to fix the problem. Come to find out the details of, obviously the item was a $9,000 item in total, and it was voted on by the entire council and passed 5 to nothing. Were the steps in place, the accurate way to handle some of that? I don't know. We're not here every day. We wanted the issue fixed, and that's where we left it. At the end of the day, it got fixed. They came in, secured our system. We would rather do it that way than advertise it and have everybody worried to death that we're not protecting their information. That's not the way we do it. It's the same as a sewer spill. We felt that was an emergency. If we have a sewer blowout, do y'all want us to wait till we get in here and vote on it and have 60 days to cut a check and want crap running all over the ground? No, you don't. We didn't want your information given out to the public for anybody just to come in and hack. So we felt like we made the right decision. Now, does everybody agree that was right or not? I'll let y'all determine that. I felt like it was right. This council will probably back me up on that as well. Like I said, there's no me in this. This is a team. I've done nothing they haven't already known about. Everything we've done is a team. So let's get into the 4 weaknesses that actually should matter to everybody, because this is where the function of your government needs to be addressed, and here's what we've done. So item number 1, monitoring. The weakness was failure of the city to perform overall monitoring of the accounting operations to provide adequate personnel properly perform accounting functions in a timely manner. The answer to that is this. The finance director is working on restructuring the finance department to meet the suggested recommendations. All job descriptions in the departments have been reviewed and updated to address segregation of duties. The accounting software has all the capabilities to run the necessary reports. The finance director has been working diligently to address the unnecessary accounts in the general ledger, which makes the reviewing process for mayor and council easier. During 17, the finance director also worked closely with Councilman Sullivan to make sure that the council is aware of the city's financial standings, both through the budget process and proposed amendments to the budget that have already been made. That's already in place, working on that as we speak. Control activities. Number 2, weakness control within the revenue cycle were not followed in such a way to allow for proper documentation and transaction. The finance director has already established procedures based on the above recommendations. It's done. It's been done. Weakness number 2, this is in the 17 audit. It will come out next year. But I just want you to know this is kind of where we're at. Controls when the revenue cycle were not followed in such a way as allows for proper safeguarding of assets. The finance department is working on developing a cashiering policy that will put procedures in place for the collections of revenue, closing out batches, turning in batches to the finance department. Employees will be required to close out and turn in batches daily. The employees will also be required to complete a cash drawer reconciliation and turn it in with their cash drawer at the end of each day. All monies will be securely kept in a safe until deposited at the bank. Monies turned in the finance department will have and will continue to be deposited in a timely manner as always. The problem with this is you cannot enforce and implement something like this without a permanent city administrator. We've got one now on day 7. That's what we've been waiting on. These are procedures that are tough to implement. You have to hold everybody accountable and get it done and enforce it correctly. It's very hard to enforce some of this as an interim city administrator, and we've had 4 up until now. So these issues have been addressed. The last one, controls in the revenue cycle were not designated in such a way to allow for adequate independent checks. Finance Department has the cashiering policy, which will require supporting documentation to be supplied to the Finance Department for all revenues collected. Pretty much, this one handles this one. It's all done. We've done the work. The work's there. As soon as he gets an approval, the council will vote on this. When that will be, it'll be pretty quick, I hope. As far as details, we're still working on all that. I promise I'm fixing to end in just a second. I'm tired. So just a few things to note financially where we are. I mean, it's plain and simple. The city's sales tax revenue was up $409,511. That's a total of $9.3 million in last year. It's an improvement from the year before. This year's gonna be the same, hopefully a lot more than that. Business licenses were up $105,238. That's up to $4.9 million in business license. The audit was actually pretty good outside of a couple of these weaknesses, which my opinion, the four were the ones that needed to be worked on, is what we have been focusing on. We have done that. You hear a lot about debt. I've heard we're in $80 million worth of debt. 60, 100, I don't know. Y'all wanna know how much debt we're in? $54.4 million. The average city has $2,500 to $3,000 per person is debt. We're right at $2,300. That's below. That's a good thing to be below the average on that one. So we have really focused on paying debt. And these are not my numbers, by the way. These are audit numbers. They pulled these, not me. I'm just passing along. We've worked really hard to pay down debt. We have paid down debt, and we're gonna continue that trend. I don't think anybody up here wants to take out a huge amount of debt going forward, regardless of whatever's going on. You know, our reserve funds are still good. We got 1.25 in water and sewer, 2.3 in general fund, 38 cents of every dollar you spend in water and sewer go to debt. That's very good, but nobody knew that either. Sorry, I'm fixing to be quiet. So I'm gonna end by saying this, and I'm not meaning to call anybody out. This is me speaking. For me taking the hit lately, it's all me. I'm not. Everybody's done a good job. I'm just sick of being the one that seems to be the target, for whatever reason. I've worked too hard to be labeled like that. This is what I'm gonna end with. Everyone, including staff, elected officials, the media, and the citizens, need to quit stirring the pot. If you don't know something that is 100% accurate, please quit commenting on it and feeding the animal. It does no good for anybody. I'm sick and tired of being the one who's taking the negative hits. We're all in this together, and there's only one team, and that's Northport. Bye. It's time to start living in the past and start focusing on moving this city forward. We need to get out of the weeds so everybody can see the goals that we're all working towards, and you're gonna see some of those tonight. I'm tired of the anonymous emails going around. They do nothing but stir the pot, and they've really brought nothing to anybody's attention. If somebody's that unhappy here, then the exit's right there. Northport's a great place to work, a great place to live, and a great place to raise your family. We have some of the best staff and some of the finest employees. My one and only goal in this job is to improve the overall quality of life for the citizens of Northport, employees as well. The path moving forward is clear, and I'm now asking each of you as elected officials to refocus our attention on making Northport the thriving city we all know it can be. We're so close to millions of dollars worth of projects that could quite possibly change Northport from being a bedroom community to a destination community. Thank you.
Amen, Rodney. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your willingness to put it all out there, and it's long past overdue. Thank you for what you've just done.
Sorry to hold up the city business. We can move forward now.
That was city business.
That was city business. Thank you, Councilman. Well said, well said. Unfinished business, 7A1 is a second reading of an ordinance amending and establishing speed limits along all U.S. and Alabama highways within the city limits of Northport. Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes, sir. If you might remember last week, I presented ALDOT's recommendations for speed adjustments on U.S. and state-owned highways. This would be your second reading tonight. Keep in mind these are only highways that are ALDOT or U.S. and state-owned highways, and they're also highways that are only locations that are located within the city limits.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance amending and establishing speed limits along all U.S. and Alabama highways within the city limits of Northport?
So moved.
That's a motion by Councilman Boozer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes. As a point, that was Councilman Davis on that one. Wanted him to speak on that one.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 2 is a second reading of an ordinance annexing approximately 41 acres south of Northwood Estates and north of Biscayne Hills. Mr. Stevens.
Yes, sir. This is a property that came before the, well, this is a second reading, post a first reading back in June from the Planning Commission. I'm sorry, from the City Council did the first reading in June. The Planning Commission did recommend this to be annexed. It's approximately 41 acres, part of the Magnolia Hill subdivision. This will be the unincorporated area between Northwood Estates and Biscayne Hills.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt that ordinance granting the annexation of approximately 41 acres located south of Northwood Estates and north of Biscayne Hills?
I'll make that motion.
That's a motion by Councilman Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Boozer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Sir, Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 3 is a second reading of an ordinance rezoning approximately 53 acres south of Northwood Estates and north of Biscayne Hills from AG to RS9. Mr. Stevens.
Yes, sir. This property came from a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission back in June, had a first reading before the council in June. It is the property just annexed plus a small portion of a commercially zoned property. The Planning Commission saw the master plan and preliminary plat at last Tuesday's meeting and approved both. The request is to rezone.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance granting the rezoning of approximately 53 acres from AG to RS9?
So moved.
That's a motion by Councilman Boozer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
New business, 8A1 is a first reading of an ordinance adopting rules and regulations for Williamson Cemetery. Ms. Starnes.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. This is the first reading for adoption of the rules and regulations for the Williamson Cemetery.
All right. That can be offered up by any member of council.
I'll offer that.
That's offered up by Councilman Hogg. Second reading, item 2 is a first reading of an ordinance rezoning 13 acres located between Carrollwood, Lakeview Drive, and Sleepy Valley Road. Mr. Stevens.
Yeah, so this is a property that was annexed by the council several weeks back on the east side of 69, east of Forest Glen subdivision. The Planning Commission voted favorably Tuesday night to recommend this annexation to RS 10.
Any member of council can offer that up for a first reading.
I'll offer that up, President Logan.
Thank you. Councilman Davis offers that for a first reading. 8B1 is a resolution authorizing the city administrator's office to enter into an agreement with NetMotion for the Mobility Mobile VPN software. Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes, sir. NetMotion mobile VPN software is the software that both the police department and the fire department are currently using in their vehicles. What you are voting on tonight is actually the annual maintenance agreement for this software that you currently are using.
Bruce, I think you had cited a dollar amount just for the record's sake.
Yes, sir. The dollar amount on this agreement is $3,543.75.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution authorizing the city administrator's office to enter into an agreement with NetMotion for the yearly maintenance of the Mobility Mobile VPN software and authorize our administrator's office to execute the necessary documents and requisitions pertaining to the agreement, of course, in the amount of $3,453.75. That's a motion by Councilman Hogg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Boozer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 2 is a resolution modifying the city's policy related to workman's compensation payments. Mr. Rose.
Yes, Mr. President, Mayor, and members of council. Every year, our Municipal Workers' Compensation Fund generates a loss control report that identifies things that we need to address internally. And one of the items that they have suggested that we look at changing is the way that we do our workman's comp insurance. They have suggested that we revert to state law, which is 66 2/3% of their wages. Right now, we're currently doing way above state law, but they have recommended that as one of their suggestions in their loss control report.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution modifying the city's policy on payment of new workman's compensation claims to follow and mimic the Alabama state law?
So moved.
That's a motion by Councilman Boozer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Sir, Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 3 is a resolution adjusting medical insurance payments. Mr. Rose.
Yes, Mr. President, Mayor, members of council. As we heard last week in our audit, and we've heard for some time, that we need to address our health insurance fund. The employees have not had a health insurance premium increase on their side in over 10 years. We have suggested that we increase the employees' portion no more than 5%. And just to give you an idea of what our employees are paying for, and when I say that we have a Cadillac plan, we Blue Cross Blue Shield, the lady came down the other day and she said, I want to come to work for y'all. I mean, we have a good plan for our employees. What we've suggested is currently single coverage on the health side, they're paying $43 a pay period. We're asking that to be moved up to $45 a pay period. The city will continue to provide the employee individual dental at no cost to the employee. On the family health side, they're currently paying $82 a pay period. We're asking that be moved to $86 a pay period with no increase on the dental side for family coverage. From the retiree side, individual health coverage, we're asking that to be moved from $95 a month to $99 a month, an increase of $4 a month. The dental on the individual side will remain the same. Retiree family health coverage will go from $422 a month to $443 a month with a net increase of $21 a month. And on the same for retiree family dental, it'll be an increase of $2 per month, of $58 to $60 a month. And this will, 5% is that helps us maintain the grandfather status of us being able to control our medical and health insurance plans and still provide those great benefits that everybody knows that we have here. So we just need to slowly start addressing this. I mean, when you look across the county at other governmental and municipal employers, I'm blessed. I have 4 kids and a wife, and I couldn't ask for anything better, personally, so.
Thank you, Joseph. I will say, just you may go around the state and you'll see maybe triple that a paycheck. So to pay $45 a paycheck and have full coverage as a single man, and if you got a family, $86 a paycheck, and you got a family, I don't know who's got a better plan. I don't know if somebody's got one. Please raise your hand, please. So thank you for that information, Joseph. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution increasing the employees and retirees portion of health insurance costs by no more than 5%? Again, that's it. I actually make the form. I'll make that motion. I'll move to adopt that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Boozer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 4 is a resolution appointing a member to the Tuscaloosa Public Library Board. Mr. Higginbotham.
Sir, the city of Northport has a member on the board for the Tuscaloosa Public Library Board. Currently, our seat expired in February of 2017, so I am approaching you tonight, asking you to consider the nomination of a board member.
All right. All right, if it's the pleasure of the council, if there's someone who wanted to offer up a name.
I move to adopt the resolution appointing Mike Manson to the Tuscaloosa Public Library Board with the term expiring in August of 2019.
All right, that's a motion to adopt the resolution appointing Mr. Mike Manson. Motion made by Councilman Hogg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing our city administrator to enter into an agreement with BKI for design services for the Charlie Shirley Road Highway 69 Improvement Project. Mr. Webb.
Yes, President Logan, Council, Mayor. Through the growth of the city, north and west, and even the county, this intersection is put under more stress and strain, and for years the city's been looking for a way to fund this project. Through the agreement with the Tuscaloosa County Road Improvement Commission, the project will be fully reimbursable. So what we're asking y'all tonight is to proceed with allowing the city administrator to negotiate fees for BKI to perform the design services on this contract.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing our city administrator's office to execute the agreement with BKI Incorporated for design services associated with the Charlie Shirley Road Highway 69 Improvement Project, and authorize our administrator's office to sign all necessary documents and requisitions pertaining to said agreement?
So moved.
That's a motion by Councilman Boozer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing our mayor's office to enter into an agreement with ALDOT pertaining to improvements to State Road 13, or better known as US 43, and Mid-Layer Road. Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes, I know a lot of you are aware of this project. The Mid-Larry Highway 43 intersection has been studied by ALDOT over the past several months, and what they have proposed is a partnership to improve that intersection. It's a partnership between ALDOT, the City of Tuscaloosa, and the City of Northport. The scope of the project that we're looking at is widening, resurfacing, and signal modification of the Highway 43 roadway. And the limits of the project basically are approximately 700 feet south of the intersection up to about 2,000 feet north of Mid-Larry Road along Highway 43. The contract itself is approximated at $1 million, and the funding for this would be $500,000 by ALDOT, $250,000 through the county, and $250,000 through Northport. County passed unanimously, and ALDOT has already agreed to their funding as well. So I am approaching you tonight to consider the City of Northport matching our 25% funding for the project.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Mayor, did you want to add anything to it? It's a great partnership project.
It absolutely is, and it'll be a huge benefit for that area, particularly with the school and some interesting development up that area. It's gonna be huge. It will be huge for the traffic that's there already, so. And the county has already adopted this, and as soon as they bring the paperwork to me, I will sign it so that we'll all be signed on the same page.
All right, is there a motion to adopt that resolution authorizing our mayor's office to execute a memorandum of agreement with AlDOT pertaining to the improvements to State Road 13, better known as Highway 43, and Mid-Layer Road, and execute all documents pertaining to said agreement?
I will be glad to make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Councilman Hogg, second by Councilman Davis, unofficial third by Councilman Sullivan. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Item C is our consent agenda. We have 9 items. They range from minutes of the previous meeting, bill listings, PO requisition for in-house consulting services, travel and training, and again, Horner Creek Road drainage repair project, and then, of course, travel and training for various employees and our TTL testing out of utilities department. So, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
That's a motion by Councilman Sullivan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 9, reports of special committees to council.
Today, I would like to discuss retail committee. We had made a recommendation at the last council meeting that we would take a look at this city hall location. I know Mr. Herndon made some comments earlier about that. At no point were we looking to just outright sell City Hall. There's a lot of different things that would have to go on with that. This is just something to be considered. If we do decide that we vote and take RFPs, that does not mean that we have to move forward with that. We would have a clause that we could get out of this at any point during that time. We just need put it out there to see what the temperature is, to gauge the interest, and then us to sit back and do our due diligence of doing our homework to see if this is a viable option or not. So just because we put it out there for a vote to look at RFPs does not mean that we are contractually obligated to moving forward with that until we know what we want to do in regards to it. Ron, is that? with that being said, for the council, I'd like to move that the city administrator and the city attorney finalize the RFP for sale of the Northport Civic Center City Hall location along the general guidelines of the draft that has been circulated in comments by the mayor and city council. I also move that the city administrator be authorized to advertise this RFP in the Tuscaloosa News and the Northport Gazette.
All right, Councilman, what I'll do is I'll add that, let the record show that's in one motion. I think that was kind of recommended by Ron's office, so that's a motion by Councilman Hogg. I will second. Any questions or comments from mayor or council? I do have one. I think Bobby Herndon made a point to make sure that we do our due diligence, but if I was in the Five and Dime today, and I have to tell this story, I saw a book, Images of Northport. I guess that's the name of it. The old McCrory Village was up here. This used to be retail. This used to be retail. Now this used to be retail. Now, Mr. Stevens, if you dig deep in those crates in your office, I think we have a 2008 plan that shows it was done by the citizens. I think it won an award, I think. So some of the aspects of that plan shows where you need to create retail trade areas, where you need to create new energy downtown, your area near 5th Street, Main Avenue. So these are not things we're coming up with. These are already plans that the citizens have already, these are citizen-driven plans. When I saw that picture today, it made sense to me now because, again, this used to be a retail corridor all those years ago. So obviously somebody knew that if you get 40,000 cars up here now, it makes sense to make this a retail trade area, or at least look at the interest and move a new energy to your city hall, because now that helps future development where your residential is, in my opinion. And again, everybody's an economic developer. We saw that tonight. So I made a motion. Is there any more comments or emotional outbursts? Well, Hogg made the motion. I made the second. Any other questions or comments from mayor or council? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Sure, they can have mine. Here you go. Here you go. Here it is. Again, we said we were going to do something bold, so apparently we only got one person saying it was not a good idea. But again, you won't know unless you take the leap. Item 14, well, excuse me, we'll go back. Item 10, public hearings, unless we have any other committees of council. All right, item 10, public hearings. We have none on the agenda. Item 11, city administrator's business. Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes, sir. I would like to ask that you consider one item tonight. Mr. Bill Lunsford, who is here tonight, if you remember, he spoke last council meeting at pre-council to you, and then he also came tonight. He is developing the project at the corner of Wildcat Drive and or Rose Boulevard at that point. He is asking permission to utilize a small strip of land behind his property that's located on the city's property, which is actually the edge of fire station number 4. He is requesting that instead of working through a retaining wall situation on his land, that he be allowed to slope some of our property back to be able to remove this retaining wall from the project. He feels this would be better for the city and his project as well. He has stated tonight that it is a time-sensitive issue. That's why I'm bringing it to you tonight. So I would ask that you consider whether you would like to entertain a motion to grant Mr. Lunsford this request.
Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move to allow Mr. Lunsford to begin grading along the property line between his development and fire station number 4. Of course, this is all subject to the final drawing and agreement dealing with 1, the drainage, 2, the liability, 3, landscaping, 4, irrigation, and number 5, also the landscaping maintenance. Okay, Mr. Lunsford and the city, which shall be brought back to the city council for final approval.
All right.
Form of a motion.
All right, thank you. That's in the form of a motion by Councilman Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Boozer. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Boozer,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Higginbotham, you have anything under your business further?
No, sir. Thank you.
Item 12, departmental business. We have one under our legal department, have a claim appeal.
Yes, Mr. President, there was a claim, by a homeowner about, the fact that he had no pressure booster on his, water line. Filed a claim, for $408, while he was away from home. He left a home hose on and, hose burst, which caused the water,
Thank you, Ron. Is there a motion to approve or deny based on the recommendation? It was recommended to deny the claim 17-39. Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. We have a citizen. I apologize. Come on up. I gravely apologize. I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record. I apologize.
My name's Derek Kendrick at 13868 Darden Avenue. I'm the homeowner in question. I'm not as familiar with this process, so I'm hoping I'm stepping in at the right moment. Thank y'all for y'all's time. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for a fairly well summarization of the claim. However, there are 3 things I'd like to add to that. You said that it was 10 to 15 years ago that the city had stopped putting in the pressure reducing valves. And in our previous meeting, when I asked the lady, I don't remember her name, but you might can recall, had actually said it was 2010 when the city had stopped that practice. So 2010 was what she had stated. Our house, as you said, was finished in 2009. The other thing is you said that my claim was for $408 originally. After filing the claim and then meeting with the city building inspector and finding out that the city was actually at that time under the 2003 International Building Codes for the water, I found out that from reading the codes that I couldn't hold the city liable for the actual expansion tank that was installed, so I reduced our claim by $50 to $358. So as far as the actual what occurred, we found out that we had 105 psi of pressure because our hot water tank pressure relief valve was leaking at the same time after we found out about the hose bursting. We did not file a claim for the hose. We only filed a claim for the pressure reducing valve and the damage caused by the extra pressure having to have the pressure release valve replaced. Because after talking with the city inspector, there was no record, and I have a copy here of the inspection, of any water pressure being tested to see whether or not it was supplied in that area at the time that the city had been known to put on the pressure reducing valves. So it wasn't even known by that city inspection whether or not one was needed. Now, even if one was not needed, if the pressure had not been above 80 psi per the building codes at that time, then for there to be more than what there would have been at that moment, that means the city would have had to have done something that created more pressure to the system into that area.